Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Making his glorious return to the podcast is the founder and CEO of both Fitness Informant and Fit Butters, Mr. Ryan Bucki.
What's up, my friend?
What is going on, man? You are, for people watching this on the live stream, they can see that your moniker for this podcast is the Nut King.
Yeah,
so
you gotta have fun with it, right? It's like the Nut King, the Nut Queen. We like to. It's like a little risque on the Fit Butter side, but that's why we had characters and things made, because we want to just have fun with the entire brand. Because I don't know, man. I feel like there's so much mundane and boring stuff out there. There's not a lot of personable brands. So it's like, let's add our personality into it. And quite frankly, I'm kind of a joker at some point. And if you've seen Fitness Informant, you know that. And people can resonate with it. I mean, especially now, people need some sort of sense of we need some comedic relief in like the crazy world that we live in. So why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. 2020 has been a clusterfuck of epic proportions, and people especially like in the fitness space and all around fitness, supplementation, nutrition, everybody almost treats it like a damn religion. And like fitness is supposed to be fun. Food's supposed to be fun and enjoyable. Supplements are like this little icing on the cake that you can sprinkle on. And we take it so seriously. Sometimes it's good to see like people can, like you can take a step back and make it enjoyable and, inject some fun into life.
We take it so seriously that Dymatize elected not to use Fruity Pebbles in their ISO because it's an isolate, right? Like, oh my God, we're going to add an extra half a gram of carbs or a gram of carbs. People, settle down. That's the thing too. We could spend a whole podcast talking about how macros are all just a glorified estimate. It's it's a law of averages, but yet people look at the box side of a box or container and be like, well, there's 100 calories in this. I got to stick to it. You got to be fucking kidding me. I mean, that thing could be 80 calories. It could be 150 calories. And it's a law of averages. So I think if you're not on contest prep, and even still, like, just chill a little bit. It's not that serious. Absolutely,
man. So let's the first time we had you on the show is you and G Money. We were talking all things Fitness Informant, supplement reviews, how y'all go about the rankings and all of that stuff. Let's just dive straight into it. And where did you come up with the idea for Fit Butters? How did that come around? We're going to build off of that.
Yeah, man. Well, being a content creator, content is king. And February, March, right in the start of this craziness, gyms were closing, people were losing access to their workout facilities. At that point, was there really any reason to spend $40 on a pre-workout if you're going to walk into your living room and just use a band or do push-ups? I mean, if you were taking pre-workouts to do push-ups, and you're just wasting money at that point. I mean, in my opinion. So, and that's what we saw. It's like, okay, we can keep talking about, Core came out with Fury, which is a great pre-workout. And unfortunately, the timing of it for them, they probably could have done 10x what they did on launch because of the situation, but they decided full steam ahead. But we noticed that, views on these types of things were still there, but people weren't converting because we have click data and everything. It's like, well, why aren't they converting? Well, because the world shut down. So what can people do during a time in which the world is shut down to maintain their fitness lifestyle, their healthy lifestyle? Well, that's, prepare meals in a way that is going to be advantageous to their fitness journey. So Danielle, my fiance, we bought an overhead cam, a system off of Amazon, because I mean, I'm addicted to some of those videos that show you how to make, garlic, whatever, prime rib in like 60 seconds, and they have the overcam video on it. And you can look down, you can see how they do it. But every one of those videos that I've seen, most of them were always like these unhealthy, super loaded with cheese and fat, which, I mean, I don't care. I'll eat it every now and then. But I mean, it's like, okay, there's not a solid channel, or at least we didn't have it coming from FI, of doing recipe content, because that is 90% more important than everything else we talk about. And so we started doing things like healthy cheesecake, turkey, meatloaves. I mean, just anything we could think of. And at the end of March, we created literally our first nut butter of our entire life. End of March. So this was March 27th. I think I still have the photo. It was our vanilla coconut, which is one of the products that we sell today. Made it in the food processor, filmed it, and realized that it tasted better than anything we had tried. And we would purchase American Dream nut butters, Hank's, what's there, Nuts and More. I mean, we would purchase all the big ones that are out there because we enjoyed having a little bit of fun with our diets. And again, realized like, okay, ours is better. I have these business connections with brands across the dietary supplement world who make really good flavored proteins. So why don't we take this to market? And literally that night I went to bed. I mean, I could barely sleep because my mind was racing. Woke up the next day. I said, okay, I want to make a play on Fitness Informant. So if you look at the logo of Fit Butters, which, I mean, if you're looking right now on my shirt, like the FI is the same font and everything from Fitness Informant. And I saw Fit Butters was available on a trademark. I immediately trademarked that sumbitch. I got fitbutters.com. Danielle wakes up. She goes, what have you been doing? I'm like, I've been up since 3:30 and I have a name, I have a logo, and I have a website. Now we need to design a label. So in the period of making our first nut butter of our entire life, from then until we launched the website and launched commerce was 10 days, Robert. Like in 10 days, we launched everything. And because I just knew it was so good. And I have a food marketing background. I worked at General Mills. I worked at Hormel. It's like, I can sell this direct to consumer. I have connections with retailers. If I can get my COGS right and the margins appropriate for retailers, we can get this in store. And 6 months in, I mean, we're going to do, I'll be transparent with you, we're going to do over $500,000 in sales this year in year one, which a lot of dietary supplement brands out there who are selling $50 protein powders can't even do that, you know? And
Right.
trust me, I'm shocked myself. Like, I mean, it's a $15 product and you do that much in sales. You're doing, I'd like to think I'm doing something right, but every day, you know, my business sense, I'm constantly looking at a P&L, the balance sheet, the COGS, and say, okay, how can I help out, you know, pass on savings to retailers, pass on savings to potentially consumers while not jeopardizing the quality of the product. And it's been a great hell of a ride at this point.
Yeah. So for the consumers out there that aren't understanding P&L and don't have the business or financial background, explain what P&L is, COGS is, and all of that stuff, because they might not understand what these acronyms are.
It's business 101, but I think it's something that many supplement owners, brands could take a class in. P&L is your profit and loss statement, right? Like, so a lot of people will say, I just said $500,000 in sales. That sounds great, but then what are my expenses? Like, what is the middle? We call it the middle of the P&L, the middle of the profit and loss statement, which is going to be your cost of goods sold, your labor, your overhead, like things like rent, electricity, boxes, tape, computers, I mean, software programs, all that goes into what you essentially are going to have in your bottom line, which is going to be your net income, or your EBITDA, which is earnings before income taxes and depreciation. So short course, but you really have to, like, people think all the time, they look at like the supplement industry, it's like, that'd be cool. And then they create a product that, you know, look, you formulated stuff before. You can't formulate a product that costs $20+ landed, because you're just not going to be able to make a business out of it. Being a supplement geek, you have to be willing to take things out, although you wish you could keep it in there. But to be a viable business, you have to keep your COGS on, say, a pre-workout between like 10 and 15, or, you know, in the case of maybe a bigger company like Redcon, it's, you know, very low because they have volumes that are through the fucking roof. So, thankfully for me, my master's program and some of my real life experience gave me that. But it's been a learning experience for me, because there are things that I've had to learn that I've never been put in that position before, like manufacturing and things of that nature. So I've learned more in the last 6 months than I did in my entire 4-year master program, my 4-year undergrad, and anytime I was working for General Mills or Hormel. So it's been fun, and it's going to be, you know, 6 months has been great, and I think we have an extremely bright future. We have some really big news coming Q1. So I couldn't really be happier with how this has gone, considering how quickly we came from idea to a viable business.
Outstanding. When we were doing my engineering's in the consulting field of engineering, and so when we're putting out cost sheets or estimates for the oil companies that we're working with, we knew labor hours, we knew estimated man hours, piping materials, all that stuff, and we had a cost sheet that the founders of the company had formulated. So if you're an engineer 1, you get billed out at $50 an hour. Engineer 2, $75 an hour. Project manager is $110 an hour, whatever. When you're in business for yourself, how do you go about quantifying how much your time is worth when you're trying to figure out all these, you know, your P&L sheets?
Yeah, I mean, first we start with our 1099 contractors who are working for us. You know, we don't have many W-2 employees, only because we don't have a consistent production schedule. So if we worked the Monday through Friday, we would have a W-2 employees, but we know basically at that point, we know what the labor rate is. We know how efficient we can be with a certain amount of staff members on at a time. So 6 people in at a time, we can do this many jars per hour, take their labor rate, divide it by the number of jars, right? And you can figure out what you're paying per jar. We include that in the COGS. Now, with us, which is interesting, because some of our products, as you'll see, you have 2 products coming to you, Robert, that are both currently hand jarring. So we still have to hand jar some things because the inclusions are so big. So the hand jarring ones obviously take a little bit more time, because we have 2 people hand jarring and we have somebody actually has to clean it. But then something that doesn't have big inclusions, we use a fill machine, or you know, an air compressor back fill machine, which we can fill 100 jars in like 6 minutes. You know, so something like that is a lot better for us. So, you know, it's been a learning thing. We're constantly massaging the P&L and figuring, you know, obviously, you know, in this world, if I buy more of something, I'm going to get a better price on it, but then you have to sit on a shit ton of inventory. So I think the thing that I learned the most is just like, you know, you always hear people say it's a cash flow business, Well, now that I'm living it, I'm paying credit card bills of $30,000-$40,000 a month because it's all inventory or raw goods. You understand, like, hey, we're doing well, you know, but you take all that money, and because you're growing, you need to reinvest it and buy more inventory. And so your bank account doesn't grow.
Right.
And if you don't understand it, if you don't understand business, you're going to get deflated real quick and want to quit. And you'll be like, why isn't my bank account growing? I understand it's going to take us a good 365 days to get to the point where potentially that bank account starts itching up. Most people too, when they start a business, they don't really pay themselves for the first X. I mean, you watch Shark Tank or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Most of the times they don't pay themselves anything. And that's just the sacrifices you have to make as an entrepreneur, as an owner, that your time is worth something, but on the P&L, it's worthless. Like, you don't put your time on the P&L because you aren't paying yourself, but you have to put on the P&L, or on that sheet, you have to put the staff that you're actually paying. So it's been a learning process. I think we're in a really good place now that we have a full grasp on our P&L, and we understand where we need to cut costs to be extremely successful, because everything, even though our product, you've had it, you'll try the new stuff, which is even better than what you and Sandy tried. If somebody doesn't taste it, like, they're going to look strictly at price, and they're going to look at somebody like Nuts and More, who's offering it to a retailer at $5 a jar. And then they look at Fitballers like, why are you double the price? Well, we're a completely different product. A, they're also, B, they're producing in volumes that are ridiculous, versus we're small batch. We're producing 100 jars at a time, So it's just, then you have to formulate and tell that story. And that's sometimes the hardest part if you're not good at sales and marketing, is how do you tell that story? Because the thing that's going to stick with everybody is price point, price point, price point. So, but if you can tell the story and you can make them realize why it's the price that it is, then it becomes an easier sell for you.
Gotcha. Well, good. Thanks for the crash course in business for all the people out there that want to start the business classes up. That's something we've never actually gotten too deep into. Like, we've addressed a little bit of marketing, a little bit of like influencer stuff on the podcast before. We never gotten like in depth as far as like profit loss statements, cost of goods, and all that stuff. So that was a cool little tangent we went on right there.
The biggest thing too, like, if anybody out there is watching or when they're listening, and you have to understand, like, operating at a loss right away is not a bad thing. Like, most likely you have to buy, especially us, since we self-manufacture, we had to invest thousands and thousands of dollars into manufacturing equipment, inventory. Like, you're going to operate at a loss for a while. We will finish the year in positive for sure, which says a lot about what we're doing. But it's okay if you operate at a loss. You get to put that towards taxes, and you get a tax break because of that. But obviously, at some point, if you want to be a business to sell, which a lot of people, when they start businesses, they start it to sell. You obviously want to be showing a positive on the P&L, which we will.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's move to the fun stuff, the flavors. Now, where do you, because y'all have what, 10 or 15 different flavors up now?
Right now, 14.
Yeah.
14 full-time flavors. Then we have Better Than Sex Cake launches, which will be a limited edition. Flavors are the most fun to do because it allows us to be super creative, but then we're also our world's biggest critics. So I, honestly, God, like, I'll walk down the ice cream aisle and I'll say, okay, what's working in ice cream? Or candy bars, for instance, like Snickers. Everybody loves Snickers. Everybody loves Reese's. Everybody loves cookies and cream. And then, so we'll come up with an idea and say, okay, this sounds like a cool idea. Is there a protein butter out there that would work for it? Because we, unlike our competitors, we flavor the base of our butters by the protein butters that we use. Our competitors typically are using like an unflavored whey protein, isolate, hydroxylate, whatever. And then they add in inclusions to call it something like, a Monster cookie might not have a Monster cookie flavor, but it has M&Ms and chocolate chips. So therefore it's Monster cookie. Well, we use in ours oatmeal cream pie protein from Pierce Labs. So that makes it more of like my understanding of a Monster cookie that I eat from the kitchen. So we're the only brand that uses the obviously brand name proteins, which thankfully I have business relationships with those guys. And, that changes the dynamic of the entire product. And then on top of that, we add name brand inclusions. So I think you and Sandy got the Rory's Cookie Monster Madness your first go around, right? So
yeah, it was delicious. We finished that off in a week.
It's still our number one seller. It's also the most expensive to make because it's a cashew butter. But we also are using Oreo. We're not using generic chocolate sandwich cookies, although on the ingredient deck, we have to put chocolate sandwich cookies because I'm not paying Oreo the royalties for licensing their name at this point. But what we can do is show it on social media, right? Like, here's our production. Here's Oreo going into it. Same with like Snickers, real Reese's. But, there's like certain desserts or certain things that we see in the ice cream aisle or candy bar aisle. It's like, okay, can that work? Or what type of cookies exist or pies exist? Like Better Than Sex Cake, for instance. I mean, it's some people know it as Better Than Anything cake. It's on the back of every Betty Crocker German chocolate cake box. If you've ever had it, it's phenomenal. But how do we make that come to life? Okay, well, there's a German chocolate protein from Nutrex. Let's use that. And then we can add in caramel and chocolate chips. And next thing you know, boom, there we are. So, I mean, I have a flavor list of like 1 million. But the thing is, you can't keep every time you do a new flavor, you have to invest in labels. You have to invest in different ingredients that you might that you're currently not buying. So
Right.
it's a huge cost to do it. But at the same time, being new, we need to do it to keep that excitement and the just basically the excitement around the brand going.
Mhm.
At the same time, you have to constantly do SKU rationalization, and you look at your slow moving SKUs and say, okay, this SKU is not selling much. It's costing me X to make. Is it worth keeping around? And I was driving home today and I thought about this because I think a lot of brand owners, even in the supplement world, because they created something or formulated something, they don't want to cut it because they're too proud of that product.
Yeah.
If it's not selling for you, cut the fucking product. I mean,
It's
you
dead
need to
weight.
make sales to keep the lights on. I don't care how proud you are. It's even more proud to admit like what you made, consumers don't want. Go away with it and try again. It's not a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there's plenty of products I bet you formulated, Robert, that maybe didn't perform in market the way that was envisioned, but I bet you have a ton of products that did. So
Yeah.
you learn from making things that consumers don't like more than anything. And if you use that knowledge and apply it to your next iteration, you're going to be successful at some point.
Absolutely. I don't know how into the details on the actual agreements that you can get into regarding like the legal stuff, but if we can, let's venture into that as far as, all right. So I don't know if you've partnered with these brands to use their proteins, or are you buying it from them directly? Is it to where like, hey, they're giving you product that you use in there, or is it just that you found products that you really want, and so I'm just going to go buy it off the shelf at like a GNC or Vitamin Shop, and I'm going to use it in my own product? So how did that partnership, if there is one there, or do you have to license the product to use it in there? What does that work?
Yeah, so obviously, you know me, and I'm transparent. I'm transparent on both Fitness Informant and Fit Butters. It's one of our core values on both brands. Initially, we were getting the protein for free from the brands, and I reached out to only brands that I worked with on FI because these are brands that I have an understanding on how they manufacture, who they are as people. The last thing I want is to have a brand that I'm going to work with either be too hardcore bodybuilding or have violations of CFR 111. I mean, I just don't want that behind the brand. So, NutriBio, great. I mean, I know you have a connection with the guys over at Primeval, and Anthony there is just like a family member to me. I mean, he's such a nice dude.
Yep.
So I have to have, like, first and foremost, a relationship there with them on a personal level, business relationship through FI. I'm just not going to bring in a brand that I've never done something with on FI. That was kind of like a selling point for FI. It's like, hey, if you work with us over here, we can consider you over here then too. But when we launched, we were getting the stuff for free. And I sat there and I had a conversation with Danielle. I said, I don't feel comfortable getting this for free. Although as a business person, it's awesome. It works really, really well in the P&L.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, if I'm getting something for free in exchange for the marketing, so that's kind of the big thing. We have the lid sticker. So on each of the containers, it shows the consumer which protein's being used. Now, mind you, our nut butters are targeted at the 18 to 35 female demographic. This is a demographic that supplement companies historically have done a fucking shit job of reaching. A really, really bad job. They assume they have to go to the pink tax stuff. That's not true. So now we're reaching a new demo for them. So if somebody tries the nut butter, it's like, I really like this, and it's made with this protein, maybe they'll go to the website or to a store and buy it. And now we're even going as far as in our shipments, and you'll see, we include a sample of that protein, if it's available, with each Fit Butter, as well as a coupon code to save money on that protein powder through the website. So, I mean, we're doing our part to give back to the brands. So like that was the exchange to start. And I told Danielle, like I said, I'm not comfortable getting it for free because I don't feel like that's a relationship or partnership. Granted, I'm offering a value, I'm offering a service, but I feel like if I need something, if I'm short on product and I call them and say, hey, can I get XYZ? And I'm not paying at all for it, they might drag their feet and I might be stuck with stockouts, and I can't have that.
Yeah.
So the agreement I have with the brands is we pay cost for it. So it costs them nothing. We pay them exactly what it costs them to make that protein. That includes the labor, the container, the sticker, shipping, everything. Because I don't want them to be out anything. So no, we're not paying retail pricing. We're not paying wholesale pricing. So we are getting a price break there, but we are paying them something. So essentially they're getting the marketing from Fit Butters and reaching that new demographic for zero. Yeah. But it does help me, right? Being fully transparent the way I am. And even if a company hasn't heard of Beam, for instance, who's a brand new company, 9 times out of 10, you probably have never heard of this brand. So it's not necessarily lifting my sales per se, but it's being transparent to the consumer. It's giving Beam an opportunity to get in front of a consumer, and it gives me an opportunity to obviously get a reduction on COGS or cost of goods sold without being greedy as fuck by just getting it for free. Granted, I could literally get proteins for free. I've had many brands call me and say, how do I get in this? This is not the way I do business. And maybe it's a fault of mine because I could make more money if I took it for free. But to me, that's not a relationship.
Yeah, no, I mean that speaks to the quality of your character, that you're willing to, you recognize the value of the personal relationships as well as the business relationships. Because yeah, we all, this whole industry, it's so closely knit. It's an industry of relationships. And say you work with one company for a while, then you go to another. You don't want to burn the bridge at the past company, because chances are within 5 years you might be circling back around it and dealing with those people in some form or fashion. That maybe not directly working with them again, but we always tend to run in the same circles. You're going to run into somebody at a trade expo or a podcast like this, and you don't want there to be this acrimonious tension between everybody.
And that's the thing too. Like, we've had one of the brands that we worked with on both FI and Fit Butters. I'll just be honest, they breached their contract with us on Fitness Informant. It was just terrible communication. They didn't, in my opinion, didn't handle things the right way. And we also used them on the Fit Butter side. So I made a decision right away to cut them off. And I threw away over $3,000 worth of labels, because I didn't want to go into market with a brand that I couldn't potentially trust. Right.
Yeah.
Like, if we don't have that relationship, if you burn that bridge with us, and it's, based on, everything's based on trust. When you break that trust, then what makes me think I can continue to trust you on this brand over here if you just broke the trust on this brand? So I went to my team and said, listen, I know it was my decision to make this partnership, but I feel we should disco this product or reformulate it. And we just got brand new labels into, and they're beautiful. And I'm just like, we're going to throw these away. And we literally threw away like $3,000 worth of labels, which sucks. But at the same time, it was the right thing for us to do. And, that's one of our values. Again, always do the right thing. It's just like, treat others in the way you want to be. It's like that whole Bambi thing, right? Like, don't say something to somebody that you want said to you type stuff. And I've always been that way. So it's like, just treat people with respect, be kind, because the world's got way too much of harsh criticism and negativity. It's like, just like you said, I mean, you're going to work with a brand again one day. So even brands that have potentially, breached contract with me on FI before, walked away, like, I don't, it is what it is, right? Like, I mean, okay, fine. I still wish you well. I wish the business relationship would have went better. I wish you would have fulfilled your obligations. And what I'll do is I'll still fulfill my obligations to the end of that contract. So even though they don't pay us for 3 months or 4 months, I tell G, if you see something, you continue to post about it, because that was our obligation to them. And, so maybe quality character, maybe stupidity. But it's worked in our favor on both brands at this point. So I figured, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, you get to see this up close and personal. There are so many great protein powders out there, and a lot of brands are making proteins that are going to be similar in flavor, form, or fashion. So everybody's got a cookies and cream protein. Everyone's got a delicious tasting chocolate protein, or most companies. How do you decide amongst all the ones? Like, so you said you've kind of whittled it down. So we have this huge conglomeration of brands, and then you've got the ones that you work with on FI, so that they're vetted, they're top-notch people. They're not doing any shady shit like spiking their proteins or lacing pre-workouts with illicit substances or anything. So you've got this closer group of things. But how do you refine it even then to where, like, how do you pick out the best chocolate to use in something, or the best cookies and cream to use in like Rory's Cookie Monster Madness? How do you go about doing that?
R&D. A lot of it's R&D. So we'll have a very busy production week, but we always try to carve out time once a month, if not more. So we used R&D in our kitchen, honestly, like through a food processor, but then we decided to change the process to, we're at a GMP facility where we manufacture our stuff. So we do it there. So that way the textures and the consistencies are exactly what to expect if it goes to product. So for instance, we have the world's first vegan crunchy peanut butter and jelly peanut butter coming out next month using Ambrosia collectos planta. It's phenomenal. And I want to like make sure, like, okay, if I say world's first, because people all the time in the world say game changing and all this shit, stupid.
God, so I hate that phrase.
I researched for like a week, and I was like, is there any other peanut butter and jelly flavored peanut butters? Because there's the Goober, right, which you have peanut butter and jelly like stripes, but there's no PB&J flavored peanut butter, let alone vegan, let alone crunchy. So that one, we started with Astro Flaves. We started with that one because that was super, super popular. We've done some work with Brian over at FI, and the first iteration it hit us and we're like, wow. But the thing is, it was almost, and I told Brian this, I said, the grape was too candy-like to me, too artificial. And so we really want to make sure that we have bold flavors that are recognizable, or a brand name inclusion that could really help move that product to the next tier. And that one was bold as shit in terms of flavor for sure, but it didn't fit the bill for me. So then we went back to the drawing board. I knew I wanted to come out with it. We would research more. I have a good relationship with Mark Lobliner and Sean at obviously Ambrosia. Ambrosia is probably, I mean, you might agree, disagree, I don't know, but one of the best vegan protein sources on the vegan proteins on the market. So I was talking to Sean for a while. We initially looked at their banana maple walnut and said, what can we do with that? And then my head's like, it's great if you've tried it, but for me to market a product that has it might not sell as well as something else. And I, it's like, he's got a PB&J, and USN has a PBJ. We work with USN. So it was just trial and error, and Planta just like outperformed everybody else. And it was just like, if this works, let's make this happen. And we're excited about it. Low Blinder's excited about it. Mike Rashid, Sean, all the guys are super excited about it because it's really, really fucking good. And it's like, it's something that the fitness world will love, but soccer moms will love. And my daughter absolutely loves it. And she's 2, Robert and Sandy are going to love it because it is just so different and good. And it uses real freeze-dried strawberries in it. So it's just, it really does come down to R&D. Because if something isn't good, like Snickers, for instance, or the one that you ordered, I initially didn't approve it because I was like, you know what? I don't think it's bold enough in terms of flavor. But then we sent it out to our ambassadors. So we have like a team, that my opinion obviously matters. And we did a team vote, and people are like, this is good. Send it out to our team and people in our circle, and everybody came back saying this is fucking awesome. I was like, did I miss something? Did I have COVID? Like, what happened here? Right? So then we made the decision to say, okay, if the masses like it, then we're going to launch it. And it's been extremely successful. I think it's our 3rd top selling SKU right now. We just found a way to even make it better, to add more caramel flavor to it without increasing any of the macros. It's just a way we process it. And, that's really just a trial and error. R&D is fun because, every R&D day that we do, I'm hoping we walk away with one that's a solid slam dunk. But there's been a couple where we walked away, we're like, nothing really blew my socks off today. Let's just call it a day and come back in a month and figure it out.
Yeah, and that's the one I think because Snickers was my favorite candy bar, I think, as a kid. Like, if we're talking regular candy, it was probably Skittles, but like candy bar was definitely a Snickers.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to try that one. And the other one I think we got was the Samoa inspired one.
Yeah,
and
that one's awesome.
And it's what Sandy said. She said, Robert, you've never had a Samoa before? And we were, so growing up, there were 3 of us. I was the oldest. I had my younger brother, and my little sister was the youngest. Sure. But none of us were in the Scouts, so we never really bought or sold like the Girl Scout cookies or anything like that. So I have no idea what the hell a Samoa tastes like. But Sandy kept telling me last night when we were talking, she said, Robert, it's a Samoa. You've never had this before? You got to try it.
Get the Keebler version, because you can't buy the Girl Scout all the time and try, because we use the Keebler version in ours just because you don't have access to Girl Scout all the time.
Right.
But yeah, it's hard to eat one. Like, I'm eating a whole sleeve or a whole box at once.
Okay, well, good. I'm super excited to try those. So it's going to be if those are good, I'm going to order both of those, because after we did the initial trio that we ordered from y'all, I bought a bunch for my brother for his birthday as a birthday present. So after we try these 2, I think I'm going to be sending him some more as a Christmas gift, because I want him to try some of the new flavors out.
Awesome.
Very cool. Moving on to the next topic. When we get to calculating the macros on all of these things, how laborious, time intensive is that? Because obviously there's a fine balance between, you want to make it, somewhat reasonably macro friendly. Otherwise, we're not going to call it Fit Butters.
Correct.
We could just call it really delicious gourmet nut butters, or whatever you want to call it. So where's that kind of threshold of, we're going to put this many inclusions in while putting this much protein and, actual nut butters in there?
Yeah. So we start out with basically a standard in terms of the amount of nuts that we use, whether it's cashews, almonds, or peanuts, in terms of a weight. So everything is done by gram basis. Okay. So for everybody listening who's ever looked at our label and says, how does this make sense? Which people have done, let me educate you. All right. It makes sense. Everything is broke down by a 1 gram basis. So we take, every time you look at the back of a package of, say, Oreos, it's going to be like a serving size of, like, I don't know, this 60 grams, right? And there's 120 calories. Well, then what you have to do is you take 120 calories divided by 60 grams, and that gets you how many calories are there in 1 gram. Okay. So we break down everything down to the singular gram into our I have a master Excel spreadsheet of every ingredient that we use, what it is, what the cost is per gram, what the macros are, what the vitamins are, what everything is. And then within that formula, you type in the weight of what you're going to use, and it multiplies by that cell, and then it calculates all the macros and the price. Okay. So unless Oreo is lying to me, everything is 100% accurate. So that's how we calculate the macros. But again, we have like a standard in terms of, we want the first ingredient to be nuts. So this is going to sound like I'm throwing shade at Grenade, and I'm not, but the Grenade spreads. Okay. People like them. I think Vitamin Shop still carries them. They're good. They're not nut butters, but the first ingredient in, like, Grenade cookies and cream is vegetable oil. Okay. We want to make sure ours are nuts. Same can be said about, people lose their shit about Nutella. Nutella is sugar. First ingredient, Nutella is sugar.
Exactly.
Okay? That's why it tastes so good. So we are a peanut butter, a nut butter. So we start with that. We obviously want the second or third ingredient to always either be coconut oil or the protein source. So we dry roast our nuts. That's a big thing, which makes us right away in terms of fit. So we don't fry them in palm or kernel oil or canola oil, which a lot of people will do that too. Not trying to like say they're terrible, but a coconut oil is going to be a better fat source. Not only is it a better fat source, like with the natural derived MCTs, it also makes for a better texture of our product too, which is great. And it adds some flavor to it. So we obviously, when I go through, honestly, like the first one that we created, the vanilla coconut, kind of set the standard. We got lucky with the ratios on that. And we had to tweak things here and there for a little bit on flavor, but that really set the standard in terms of what we want, in terms of the amount of inclusions. Because when I first formulated that, I said, okay, this is how much inclusions I'd like per jar. And I just multiplied that, by like 100 or whatever. So we want the macros to always be 200 calories or less. So between 160 and 200, all of ours are between that. Our sugars we want to be extremely low, but in the portion of the sugars that I want you guys to look at is the included sugars. So that if you want to be compliant with label guidelines, you have to put sugar alcohols and include sugars now. Okay. Yep. We try to keep the included sugars down because you're going to get natural sugars from cashews. So our sugars on some of ours could be like 4 grams, 5 grams. Well, cashews have natural sugars in them, right? Then you have a little bit from the Snickers, but I don't want to add a bunch of carbs and sugars from Snickers. So we add just enough that it adds flavor and texture. And then we add a lot of it on top too. So when you open it, you can see it and you can mix them in. But it's just we obviously know where we want to be in terms of macros. And then we also want to make sure that there's enough inclusions in there that what you're eating is inspired by that inclusion, but not so much that now it's just a fucking candy bar. We don't want to be that either. So it's just a trial and error. We found a system now that works. And when I formulate something new, I just pull in what the cashew almond blend is from another one. And then, if it's the coconut oil, I'll adjust. If it's, if we're using an isolate versus a concentrate, I'll adjust a little bit because the concentrate's just a little bit thicker. But other than that, everything kind of just falls into place because everything has to equal 455 grams because that's what a jar is. So, or 453.592 grams equals a 16-ounce container. Obviously, we have overfill, but we just got to make sure that all of our weights add up to that. And then that becomes the formula. No different than formulating supplements or whatever.
Right. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. If you look at the macros on a fit butter, it's not like it's this super high protein butter where you're going to get like 20 grams of protein in a serving like you would with a protein bar. They're more along the lines of like a standard peanut butter, almond butter. So if you're trying to attract a new customer and you're going to say, here's our fit butter, what is the selling point of that? What makes it fit or the fitter choice for lack of a more refined, savvy term than just, your regular almond butter, peanut butter, cashew butter, sunflower seed butter, what have you. Where's the selling point? What makes it fit specifically? If the macro is kind of, they're within a couple grams of each other.
It's behind the numbers. I think it's the understanding of behind the numbers. I think a lot of people look at the numbers and they don't necessarily look at the ingredients. They say, okay, 5 grams of fat is 5 grams of fat is 5 grams of fat. Okay, where's that fat coming from? In our case, it's coconut oil. So we're using a better fat source. We never claim to be a high protein spread. I don't want to be. If I use more protein in my formulas, it becomes chalky and dairy-like, and then it just, you may have had spreads before that are just like too much protein, and that's the turnoff too. So I wanted to lead with flavor by using a complete protein source in a whey protein. So that's one thing too. A lot of people let me say this. If you turn to nut butters for your protein source, you need to educate yourself. So peanut butter,
correct.
Even though it says on the label 6 grams of protein, that is not a complete protein source. There's a reason why vegans have to eat peanuts and beans and legumes and lentils, and they have to mix a bunch of shit together to get to a complete amino acid profile. Okay. Yep. So there's that. So by adding in or infusing whey protein isolate or concentrate, we now make it a complete protein source versus an incomplete. And then the coconut oil, obviously it makes it a healthy fat source on it. So that's the two big things. And that's what we tell our retailers. That's what we tell our customers. It's like, listen, we're not going to give you 10, 12 grams of protein per serving because it's not what we do. Now, you can look at some of the competitors and they have it. So they are using an unflavored. They might be using a little bit more oil. So they would bring down nuts and they'd use more oil. So that way it can be a little bit runnier. I didn't want to do that either, because that's like nuts are super expensive. So by them taking the nuts down and adding more oil, it's actually a cost savings to them.
Yeah, they're increasing their profit margin per tub.
They're then able to obviously tout 10 grams of protein, which is fine. But when you try our products side by side, if we did blind taste tests like Pepsi and Coke did back in the day, like I'm pretty confident we'd win almost every single time. Because one thing I learned at General Mills is consumers love this idea of healthy for you, but they'll always lead with their flavor profile, like their tongue, right? Like
Yeah.
they're always going to buy based on flavor preference. So unless it's a complete shitty macros, if they're close or similar, they're going to lead with flavor and they'll buy, and they'll pay a premium for it if it tastes better, because we're in a world now where your protein powders don't taste like the GNC protein powders from 10 years ago. They're actually enjoyable, right? So I learned, lead with flavor, make sure your macros fall in line, have a good marketing plan, have a good story. And our story is, we roast all the nuts in house. We make it ourselves. We add coconut oil. We complete the protein source with name brand proteins that nobody else does. And we're transparent. At the end of the day, we tell you exactly what we're putting in this product. We're not telling you the weights of each thing. I mean, that's you can call it a prop blend, I guess, if you want, right? But that's no different. That's food for you. You're not going to find a food product that's going to break down, what the weights are of each individual ingredient. But we wanted to make sure, like I said, that it was fit lifestyle centric, because nut butter should be consumed for their fat content, not their proteins. But at the same time, let's make it a complete protein source, make it flavorful, make it fun. Now, when it's not fit is when you eat a whole jar in one sitting. So disclaimer, stick to your serving sizes a little bit. I mean, I get it. It's good. I've eaten half a jar in one sitting too. But if you stick to your serving sizes the way you're supposed to be, and you're actually counting macros, it's a fun way to spice up a boring, mundane category that we've been traditionally known to have, like white rice, chicken breast, even Jif peanut butter. Like it's, now you can have some fun with it.
Outstanding. What is your personal favorite flavor of the lot?
Mine is Monster Cookie, which we just created with the oatmeal cream pie from Purist, which is a keto feed. So it's got higher, which is nice. It's got a little bit higher fat content in it from the MCTs, which is kind of cool because it plays into what we're doing. But to me, it's awesome. And it is that, and Rory's are like our 1 and 2 seller. That's a peanut butter base. I love, like, Rory's is great because it's like cashew cookies and cream. And I think I'm surprised nobody's ever done it, honest to God, because it like makes sense to me. I think the vegan PB&J that we have coming out is it's so different. It's good. But we also have cookie butter coming out in January, which is another vegan one. And if you like Biscoff, it's crazy. I mean, but yeah, if I had to choose one to consume probably daily, it's Monster Cookie, because it's really versatile. It's good for PB&Js. It's good for cream of rice, whatever. But I mean, it just depends on your personal preference. Like Samoa, for instance, people love it. It's a little bit thicker, that one is, because we use a caramel syrup in it, but we're actually going to change the formula a little bit so it's not as thick. But you get caramel or a Keebler cookie like in every bite, and it's on top of Halo Top. Robert, if you're a Halo Top fan or an ice cream fan, put a scoop of it on there, let it freeze. It's awesome.
Awesome. Cool. All right. I'm gonna play devil's advocate again on this, just because I want the listeners to kind of understand, like, these are some of the common arguments you've probably gotten kicked your way, and we just haven't made it public, and things that I've gotten kicked my way. Just after we did our first review of these kind of things, there were certain comments in the YouTube, or I would get DMs and all that, and people would fire off to us. I'm not going to name names on all of this, but that we're going to have to be able to you're going to be able to
want to do it.
No. We're going to let you steel man the brand. Okay. So people say, hey, you're not really creating anything here. You're just taking somebody else's hard work and you're injecting it into you're making a nut butter. So you're grinding up some nuts, but you're taking all of these premium protein powders that other companies have made. And so really the Fit Butter success is really just vaulted up on the success of these protein powders and these supplement brands.
I love that one. As I mentioned earlier, our target demo is 18 to 35. Many of these females, okay, in the fitness world. So we were intentional about who we were going to go after. We wanted to be fitness lifestyle. Nobody was really creating a nut butter that was designed, marketed into the fitness world. Okay. So American Dream was kind of by default. Hanks was kind of by default because they had an agreement with Europa and supplement retailers, but the branding didn't speak to me as a bodybuilder, as somebody who cares about it. So big part of our success is the branding, being intentional about who we are. Does using, we'll say, the IP of other brands help? Sure, to the people who know those brands. But we're on stores in major grocery stores and in health market sections. People are buying us because of flavor and because we're using coconut oil and we're being transparent. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten messages from people, even brand owners, saying, like, I don't know this brand. So they're not buying it because of the set. Are there some people buying it because of the brand? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to discredit the brands. Are more people buying it because it sounds good? It looks good? Yes. And I've actually had a conversation with a brand owner of one of the great brands out there. People respect them. They're cool, hip. And his comment to me was great. He goes, honestly, Ryan, I think it's the other way around. I think you're the one providing value to these other brands because you're bringing in this new consumer set aren't purchasing that brand today or are maybe just purchasing their protein powders from their Walmarts and Targets or whatever, because that's what's readily available to them, you're bringing new customers to them. So is there a percentage of the population buying fit powders because of them? Yes, but I believe more people are considering these proteins now because of you. And I think that's true. And again, I don't want that to be disrespectful or discredit, but there's sports nutrition, which, yes, we're in sports nutrition stores. And then there's food, drug, mass, which is a completely different animal. And that's where we're going with it. And, you'll see us debut next year in some more major retailers and groceries. You'll see us debut in major supplement retailers as well. But we want to be that crossover brand. We want to help bridge the gap between somebody who's just going to buy their chicken breasts and their rice from an HEB or potentially a Kroger to now considering NutriBio protein or Primeval Labs protein because they've had a nut butter that had it and they've never heard of this brand before, never considered it. Now they do.
Gotcha. So you just mentioned HEB, and for the listeners out there, that's one of the major grocery store chains down in South Texas here. So is that kind of a sneak peek of where you may be getting in next year?
Yeah, I'm busting my ass over here, Robert. So there, we identified food, drug, mass retailers that make the most sense for us to go into the start. So in the Midwest region, Hy-Vee grocery stores up here have health markets and that carry outright bars and carry Cellucor and carry just some big brands in sport. They have a whole sports nutrition set, but they also, we're set next to Justin's RX, Bliss, some of these other very niche nut butters. So, which is great. That's where we need to be because we're a price point of $14.99. If you put us next to a jar of $1.89 Skippy protein because they make a protein nut butter now, and they're going to go to that every day of the week. But those our consumers aren't buying Jif, right? HEB is one of those grocers too with a huge focus on health and nutrition. So, they're carrying brands like Redcon One and other sports nutrition brands. I don't know what they have for, Quest bars and all that are there, but they have a focus on that because like Austin, for instance, is probably one of the healthiest cities in the country, just like Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yeah. Consumers expect that from them. And I think there's a shift, even when you start talking about Walmart, Walmart or Redcon One will be debuting Walmart this month as the first sort of premium supplement. So granted, Muscle Tech is there and Cellucor is there, but they have different formulations for their products for Walmart shelves. Redcon didn't do that. They didn't need to because obviously their volumes are high enough. So I know this is going off on a different route here, but everybody in the space should cheer for Redcon to do well, because if they do well, then they set a higher pricing standard for Walmart, and then other brands can potentially get in there. And a Walmart deal it's life-changing. It is life-changing for a brand. So, that's really where we started. We recognize these retailers that have it, and Kroger is obviously one of the biggest grocery chains in the States. And something like Vitamin Shop is what we're looking at too, that actually have. People ask me would you want GNC or Vitamin Shop? No disrespect to GNC, but they don't do a really good job on functional foods and GNCs. Vitamin Shop does a great job on it. So it's being strategic about where we go, but we don't want to go too fast, because the last thing we want to do is grow too fast where we start having stock out issues and then we displease customers. So I'd rather overpromise and overdeliver than just fall up short.
Gotcha. What now? You're officially a brand owner now. So Fitness Informant was there to provide. You didn't have an actual goods. Maybe y'all had some ebooks that you were selling on the site. Maybe some merchandise as well. This is your first time as a brand owner where you're going to be providing goods for people to thing. And so now you're faced with the decision: brick and mortar, D2C, maybe an internet retailer like a Tiger Fitness or bodybuilding.com.
Right.
Where is your head as a brand owner, and how do you navigate, do I maximize my profit and stay strictly to consumer, or do I go a little bit wider, but I'm going to lose a little bit on my, on my sales, on my margins each time when I start to go into either distribution or to brick and mortar retailers, grocery stores and whatnot?
That was the hardest thing. And I think that's the hardest thing for because a lot of people chase the dollar. I mean, I think they do, right? They see green and they go. And we can't do that because yes, our D2C model, that's why we're going to consistently launch limited edition releases through fitplayers.com. That's not available to retailers because we need that. We need our D2C business to be healthy and be well, and it is. But we also can't neglect the wholesale model because we understand they are begging for more functional foods in their set because consumers are buying more functional foods today than ever before. And there hasn't been a lot of Vitamin Shop, for instance, they've expressed to me that they need a refresh in their functional set because not a lot has been done in that space. Especially the nut butter space in ours. There's really not a nut butter in our space. I mean, like I said, by default through Europa, you can find a couple. I know Legendary for a little bit was there, but so we're kind of this new exciting thing. So I don't want to neglect certain retailers, but at the same time, it has to make sense. I said this from the beginning. we don't want to be in every retail store, like, because I don't want to be in a retail store that's selling SARMs behind the counter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that. But I have great retailers like Natural Body, Nutrition Factory, Nutrition Corners. I mean, five-star locations, which is 53 locations throughout America. Like that, those are good retailers who are super supportive of that. We want to support them. So we want to make sure that we're available for consumers. And that includes Amazon. Like, we are going to be on Amazon. We're on Amazon. We are now switching some things over to be fulfilled by Amazon. So we'll be Prime eligible for consumers, because there are still those consumers who they do all their shopping on Amazon. Being a business owner, you can't neglect that. Like,
Correct.
Amazon being, what is it, the second or third largest search engine in the world, behind Google and YouTube. It's like Amazon probably even past that. Like, you can't neglect it. And also, you want to price protect as well. So for people listening at home, if you don't have a registered brand on Amazon, any third party person, including distributor, retailer, can go on Amazon and sell your product below whatever you want. We can kind of go in and block that, make sure that pricing integrity is where it's supposed to be. So it's it's a balance. I never wanted wholesale to be like 75-25. I want sort of that 50-50 model. I want 50% like wholesale, 50% retail. And then, once we get like a year in our belt, look at that model and say, massage it a little bit and say, okay, let's put more efforts into direct to consumer through social media advertising, YouTube, whatever it is. But at the same time, like, if we're going to continue to grow wholesale and we can make margin there, we'll do that. But we want to reserve things for our .com that aren't available elsewhere, so we can still promote people to come to them. And that's why we did like free shipping over $50, things like that, because that decision, what people don't realize is how much shipping is now. Like, shipping is super expensive today in the COVID world. Even pre-COVID, it was expensive, and it's growing and growing. So every time that we're shipping 4+ units, it's costing me anywhere from, $10 to $15 to ship that. That comes right off of everything. So you walk away with significantly less than what we did before, but the equation you have to do is like, how many more people are going to purchase if you offer free shipping versus if you don't, and does that revenue gain even out or sort of like surpass? And really, we didn't know. Right. Because we didn't have enough data at that point. I made a gut call to say, fuck it, let's do it. We live in a free shipping world, because I've seen so many people get to a checkout and walk away because there's a $10 shipping fee, And so it worked, thank God. But I mean, it's just one of those things that you're nervous hitting that trigger to switch it over. And the same is with wholesale and direct to consumer. Where do you want to put your efforts? Where do you where does it make more sense? So, a lot of people don't know, like, there's Danielle and I, and then we have 2 other people on the team here as well. So Travis is his name. He's helping me with customer retention. So he's calling on current retail accounts, making sure that they're happy, making sure that we get reorders there, because me being one person to call on 250 stores while leading production, while doing direct to consumer and marketing ads, gets to be a lot. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of our customer and not neglecting anybody. And that includes both D2C and wholesale model.
Outstanding. Now you've spent a considerable chunk of your time in 2020 focusing on Fit Butters. You still have your other baby in Fitness Informant. So how do you juggle keeping those two? And I know you've got G handling a lot of the content on Fitness Informant, but that was still your first baby. So how do you, not juxtapose, but, do the balancing act of keeping both of them, giving them their due diligence and their fair attention? Yeah.
The biggest thing is obviously having G on as a full-time employee. That helped a lot. Now, when I hired G on as a full-time employee, as of January 1, like, Fit Butters was not even an idea. It's just, we've gotten busy to the point where I was, doing 8, 10, 12 hours a day in content writing or filming and editing and stuff. It's like, well, let's put out more. The more content you can put out, the more you become sort of a place that people want to come. So during that time, especially in the beginning months, G was instrumental in keeping things going, because I guess what was nice is it was a COVID world. So there was a lot of like slow stuff. There wasn't a lot of product launches. So it allowed me to spend some time doing this over here while G kind of handled the day-to-day. But in the world that we're at now, where the world reopened, at least for a while, I'm literally back in too. So, doing this podcast next, after this podcast, I'm sitting with Jay Cutler, and we're going to talk about the Olympia. Then I have a podcast with Josh Shaw that I do there, but then I'll sit down for 3 hours, 4 hours tonight, writing content for Fitness Informant, working on back end stuff, doing some SEO stuff. So, I might do production on Fit Butters, Tuesday, Thursday from say 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. I come home, I shower, I eat, and I log into my laptop and I work on Fitness Informant stuff. So the nice thing about a digital business like FI is there's no open to close. I can work on it at 3 a.m. if I want to.
Right.
And that'll happen. I'll wake up at 3:15 because my mind's going, and I'll just pop up in a laptop and start shooting out emails to partners on FI. Right now we're putting together, a big page for Black Friday, so that way people can come and just figure out like what's going on for Black Friday. So I'm more involved now than I was right away in the beginning, because in the beginning I was driving 2 hours to a kitchen to produce and driving back home. and trying to figure everything out. That it took a lot of resources, but now since things are sort of going well, we have a good team in place. I can do both because I enjoy it. I mean, yes, I work a shit ton, 68 hours a week on both. Like, there's no weekends or there's no vacation. I get married in 2 weeks, Robert. Like, at my wedding,
Congratulations.
I guarantee I'll be working down there too, right? But it's what you have to do to keep things afloat, because I don't want my brand owners on the FI side to think that I'm neglecting them and that I'm spending all the time over here and not with them. So I'm on calls. Yesterday, G and I had a call with a nutrition company. Like, I make sure I make my calls. I set up calls. We just brought on another brand last week. So, we are continuing to put out content, both G and and it's been, I think the coolest thing to see over the last 6 months has been, and I said this before, like the maturation of G as a person. Like he's the first time he came to my place here in Minneapolis and filmed the review, I think it took us 2 hours to film the fucking thing. It was like 7 minutes because he was so nervous and just not comfortable being on screen.
Yep.
And
I can
now
relate.
it's like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to make that switch. But now you watch G on our Q&As and he's got his hair slicked over looking like a goddamn model. And he goes and, it still takes him a little bit to do some reviews, but he's kind of coming to his own. And my goal for G when I hired him on full time was like, I want you to come work for me for 2 years, maybe 3 years, but then I want you to go off and do your own thing. Like, not to say like I'm going to fire him, because I won't do that, but like you're going to learn so much by doing this full time, and you're going to get tired of working for somebody at some point. And I want to help you get to where you want to be, whether that's here or maybe it's a brand wants to hire you in to be something. If your goal is to work in this space and you want something bigger than Fitness Informant or be on the brand side, like, I'm not going to hold you back. I'm going to support the shit out of you and get you to where you need to go.
Absolutely, man. Very cool. With the price point of the Fit Butters at $14.99, given the shuttering of businesses and a lot of people dealing with economic hardships, have you found it a struggle to not convince people, but show them the worth in paying for a premium nut butter product?
Not really, honestly. I think what's nice is online, our competitors are priced at the same point. And again, it kind of comes down to like what I think it's nice because I have the credibility from Fitness Informant. So at least in this world, they're like, and I have a good connection. So, I mean, having Jay Cutler show it on camera and stuff like that, or John Meadows put into his workout day or to his meal plans, it's a cool thing to do. And people, and I think too, if bodybuilders or fitness people, like, they are willing to spend money on food, like especially food that gives them happiness. I think is the biggest thing, because they're so miserable. But even like in the traditional set, so at a grocery store, when we're sitting at $14.99, I mean, some grocers can sell us for $12.99. Like, our MAP price is $12.99. So if they list us at $12.99 next to a Justin's at $11.99, or we're line price with Justin's, it's easy. It's because there's gonna be always people buying Justin's because it's a traditional nut butter and we're in that set. But I think what we've seen with COVID is people are unwilling to eliminate expenses when it comes to technology, like their cell phone and their TV. I mean, I think some people have cut traditional cable and they're just doing Netflix and things like that, but they're still paying for something, a service. And then with food, what we see is either there's been a separation, kind of like in our society, a separation from the middle class. So you have like people buying either just dirt cheap stuff or they're buying premium. And so like we didn't get lost in that shuffle. And it's been, we're able to offer margins to like a retailer that's probably better than what, obviously better than what Jiffy and Skippy are offering, probably similar to what Justin's are, but we can't offer margins that pills and powders are getting in sports nutrition, because that's just insane. Like, we can't offer a retailer 50, 60, 70% margins on stuff. It's just not possible. But we really haven't. I think the social proof is there. Our Instagram channel has been great because there's so many people who believe in this product, and like you and Sandy, even like you guys tried it. And even that video that you guys did would be enough to convince somebody like, yeah, I'm willing to spend $15 on it. Now, if you are a traditional Skippy eater, my product's not for you. Like, it's just, why would you go from spending $1.99 to $14.99? Even though it's a better product, it tastes better. If you're happy with Skippy, keep buying Skippy. I mean, it doesn't bother me. But there's a portion of the population looking for that better alternative, something with flavor. That the $14.99 price point, the feedback that I've gotten has been that it's fair. There's, you always have some people that are always saying like, it's too expensive, can I get a discount? But those people ask for a discount on something that's $3 too. So it's like, they're just discount seeking people.
It's the same thing with when we're trying to not convince people, but show them the value of pre-workouts. Like, you're going to have the people that want to go buy the BOGO deals on bodybuilding.com, or they see like this tub of C4 at Walmart for $12 or $15. And when you're trying to show them something premium quality, like Granite Supplements, Morphogen Nutrition, any of these like top tier Apollon Nutrition, these heavy hitter pre-workout supplements that are, $40, $50 a jar, if they're constantly just looking for the cheapest thing possible, you're never going to win that argument. And that's fine. If all they need is, 150 megs of caffeine and a prop blend of God knows whatever else, that's fine. But you've got the people that want the premium, the well-dosed formulas and all of that kind of stuff. So it's just, like you said, it's different things for, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, I think that's great too. Cause I mean, you mentioned C4 for like Costco. I mean, if that's what you're using and it works for you, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the thing is like that consumer probably isn't going to notice a major difference from that $20 pre-workout than the $40 pre-workout, like, because there's a bunch of ergonomic benefits of pre-workouts that you don't feel.
Yeah.
So if you're just looking for the beta alanine and caffeine, C4 is perfect for you. But if you understand the science behind what's in that product, if there actually is science, that's another debate. But like, if there is, you understand the other benefits that you're going to get that you don't necessarily feel. So therefore you can, and that's why people like you, people like me exist, to explain those benefits to people out there. Because again, like if you're just seeking caffeine and beta alanine, a Bang energy drink, a C4, whatever, I mean, that is totally fine. And I'm not going to spend time trying to convince you otherwise. Like, you're not wrong by buying a $20 thing of C4. You're not wrong. You're not inadequate. You're not dumb. That works for you. You're good to go. But if you want to take your training to the next level and you follow the guidelines of like a proper nutrition, yada, 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 then listen to guys like Robert and me, and we'll try to steer you to where we think you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Given your background with big food manufacturers, so you mentioned General Mills, you mentioned Hormel, do you ever foresee like one of these big dogs trying to like throw their hat in the ring and you worrying about having to contend with them? Or even from like the supplement brand side, like NutraBio, hey, they saw that their protein worked really well in a nut butter. Do you ever see, Mark, strapping down, like expanding his manufacturing facility and saying, hey, we're going to come up with our own nut butter, or Primeal doing it with their isolate, or, Beam doing it with theirs? Anybody that, do you ever worry about competition from other people, or like them kind of riffing on your idea and they're using their own protein powder?
Really don't. And then that's the thing, like being on Amazon, people are like, well, they can learn your model and stuff, but they don't have the relationships with these brands. Now, Mark could come out with a line but the thing is that's different is Mark's line would just be NutraBio, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not going to get different brands in there. With that being said, like Mark has expressed interest in selling our product on NutraBio.com because it's utilizing their protein.
That's
Ambrosia,
cool.
same thing. Like the PB&J will be available probably on Ambrosia's website. So that's sort of the next step, because hey, you guys are helping us with the protein, we're helping you with the marketing. Maybe you guys can resell it on your domain, make some money on it as well. So that way they don't have to go and learn how to learn the formulas and buy a bunch of nut processing equipment. Could they do it? Yeah. Does it scare me? It doesn't. Again, because then it becomes a singular branded item versus right now we're multi. With that said, the one thing, and some people may think this is like, well, what if at some point a brand goes out of business or they can't meet your protein demands? Like, what do you do then? Well, these are conversations that we have ongoing with these brands. So when they have their protein production schedule, we're in communication saying like, what do you think your forecast is going to be for this? Because we'll make sure that we bump up production. What does that do for them, Robert? It actually decreases their COGS, because by us buying protein from them at significant volumes, when we get even bigger, we get a vitamin shop deal or something like that, it's going to decrease their COGS on protein, thus making them more money when they sell a product, protein powder, which is historically shit on margins. So any penny, any dime, any nickel they can get in their advantage is advantageous to them. And if I can help them do that by us being successful, we all win.
Absolutely. Would you ever be in, like you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, that the goal of many business owners is to grow a successful business and then ultimately sell it?
Right.
Do you have an idea of where you'd like to see the Fit Butter business? Is this something like it's ride or die, you're doing this for life? Or is this, hey, I built a really successful business, I'm ready to move on to something in, 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I think we've had both those conversations internally. Like if we can build it to the point where it's a good income stream for us, we can definitely do that. But I think any entrepreneur really builds to sell. But then you look at somebody like Mark Glazer, who's had NutraBio for 20 plus years, and he's loving it. See, you can do both sides of the coin. Me, I'm the type of person that likes consistent change. Like I like different things in my life. Not that I'm going to get upset, but if it's Fit Butters, okay, can I do an extension off of Fit Butters? Can I do another food product that's an extension to get into start having that conversation with a different buyer at HEB? So that's kind of where I'm thinking is for the time being, like, how do I build an umbrella of brands in the food space? So I'm not competing, that could potentially leverage my partnerships or at least make it still fitness centric. So there's a couple other things that I have in our portfolio. I have other labels. I have some trademarks and stuff that we may do at some point. Right now, the focus is on growing this brand, because people are like, well, then you could flow into like a protein bar if you wanted to, because there's nut butter based protein bars. Well,
My
Mark,
next question. That was
right,
it.
yeah, Mark and I are boys. Mark, it's funny, the story of the low blinders, when I first pitched to him to have MTS come on because I really wanted to use his red velvet cake in a nut butter.
Yeah.
He denied. He said, no, I can't do it because then I'm going to be promoting other brands that you're using. And Mark and I are good friends. So I said, cool, I'm not going to push the subject. This was back in like right when we launched.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're doing the PB&J with Mark. Tiger
Mm-hmm.
Fitness sells us, and we reformulated our cookies and cream, our mint cookies and cream, using their MTS cookies and cream, which is absolutely phenomenal.
Delicious.
So,
yeah, that and their peanut butter cookies and
Mhm.
cream is out freaking standing.
It's
I love
awesome.
those two proteins.
Yeah, so we had a chocolate mint cookies and cream. It was super expensive. We were using the actual mint extract in it, which is not cheap.
Nope.
So we reformulated it, changed the protein source on it. So it's not chocolate mint cookies and cream anymore. It'll be mint cookies and cream, which that'll flow in probably first of the year. It's
Mhm.
awesome. We use little mint chocolate chips too, which is great. But Mark's a believer in the brand, so it's not something that if we went into the snack category, I'd want our chassis to be different than what he's doing with Outright, out of respect for Mark and out of our friendship. So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, we could somehow add honey and make it look just like the Outright bar, like a lot of other companies are trying to do right now. But I don't. I want to be like more innovative and inventive and do something different. So, and it's not like I'm going to have NutriBio infused into a protein bar at that. I mean, I could. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just right now. It's
Yeah.
just the butter space is where I want to be.
Okay, perfect. Let's transition to some more easygoing topics. Some more. You don't need to go yet for your podcast with JD. I don't want to hold
Nope,
you over.
we're
Okay,
good.
all right. And have you had him on your podcast before? I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I talked to him for the first time a couple weeks ago. Super, super cool guy. It was awesome, man. It was
One of
really,
the
really
nicest
cool
guys.
talking.
Him and Flex Lewis are probably two of the nicest guys on the planet. When they don't even, I mean, you look at some of these people who are successful in the bodybuilding world, like you want people to be nice, but you also understand if they're a little bit of an asshole because
yeah.
like I mean, they're not. Like they
No.
make time, and Jay will text me 3-4 times a week. I mean, we just talk about whatever. And it's like, how did this happen? Like, how did I get a 4-time Mr. Olympia who just like out of the blue will shoot me a text, and I'll see him in Vegas for the Olympia, knock on wood if it happens. But it's kind of, but that just, says a lot about his character, and hopefully says a little bit about me and my trustworthiness, but it's been fun.
Agreed. Yeah. What recent supplements have you been using, if any, to kind of fuel your like 16-hour work days? And what have been some of the surprises that have come across your desk that have really turned you on lately?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so I finally just got Glaxon products in.
You're gonna be happy. You're gonna be
Yeah, I
happy.
mean, Michael and I have had a pretty close relationship recently because we both went through some fraud shit in Canada. So like we've been trying to help each other out, from his end and my end, and we've been talking daily. And I seen G had some stuff from Glaxon. They sent me some stuff. And first off, it was my first time seeing the labels in person. And from a label standpoint, they killed it. I think it's great. But
Absolutely.
and when you look at labels, sometimes you're like, what, the formulas are probably not that great, but they're not bad at all, actually. Like there's, for me, I finally just used their Plasma Surge for the first time. I'm using their Serenity product right now, just because, I mean, I need to calm the fuck down. Like I'm just go. Because I mean, this morning I woke up at 3:15 thinking about a credit card bill that we got to pay on Fitbutters and an investment. I mean, that's the thing. Like it keeps going. So I just need something to calm me down. But it's cool to see a brand like Glaxon succeed because they did it in their own unique way. They didn't rip somebody off. They didn't. I'm not talking like even their formulas are different, but like their branding is completely different than anything I've seen before. So like kudos to Sam and the team over there. Like they did a really good job on that. People say we're biased towards Ghost. Sure, because they keep coming out with stuff that I like. It's good. I mean, even their max shooting, their V2 that just came out, not only does it taste great, the formula is awesome. So it's like, they're not increasing their price points with a 20% off coupon code. They're not making as much margin as a Redcon one of the worlds, but they're doing it because like they are supplement nerds like you and I. Like they do have people there who actually care about what they put in. That's why they're reformulating Legend, and that's why they're reformulating Pump. Like they know that it's a bit dated now. So the max shooting stuff that came over, I think Waldrum over at Inspired still does some really cool stuff. I mean, FSU is still my go-to pump product. I still love their greens. Their Amino Fuego, it's cool. It's a cool concept on it. That I've enjoyed. Ben Hartman at Morphogen Nutrition is a brand that we'll never see in stores because I don't think he formulated for brick and mortar, right?
Absolutely.
But it's so good. It's so good. The funny thing about Ben is like sometimes I look at those formulas, I'm like, you didn't have to put all that stuff in there, Ben. You didn't have to. Like you
Right.
probably, I'd like to see like just a little study based on like a circle of our friends and say, okay, let's remove like 3 of these ingredients and see if we feel any different from it. Like because if you're targeting the same pathways and things of that nature, but that's a brand that I think doesn't get a lot of credit. I got a brand from Canada just sent me something, Yummy Sports, and it's not terrible formulas at all, but like their branding is very cool too, and just like it's crazy because I don't outside like our continental like 48 states. I don't know a lot about international brands and what's out there. So I see things out there. Like I just called out a brand the other day for looking a lot like Ghost. Like that's, for me. And then I was told from a distributor over there that they intentionally did that, which is even more bullshit. But it's like, I want to learn more about what's out there because in the States, a lot of the stuff is going to be the same because there's a pool of ingredients to select from. And people, for whatever reason, can't be creative on brand originality when they start creating labels. I don't get it. But, and Accent Sledge is another one too. I think that for OC and his team there have done some cool stuff with, I mean, I don't know how they got away with the Jack Daniels thing. Like, I don't know how they did it. But
Genius. But I mean,
I mean, if they get served a letter, cool. But it's, I see it in almost every retail shop I go into. So it obviously works. So I think long story short, it speaks volumes that, people are sometimes throw shade at the industry, but I think we're in a good space. And I think there's a lot of brands doing some really cool stuff out there. And I know like a brand that we're close with, like Primeval has some cool stuff coming out too. People have probably seen the Ape Shit RTD that's coming out. And quite honestly, I'm excited about the MRE RTD coming out from Redcon. Am I an MRE user? No, I'm not. I still would take a whey protein or vegan protein over it, but I think that's a category that hasn't been touched in so long. Like I'm rooting for Aaron. I'm rooting for that team to do well because everybody seems to go to energy. Like Ghost Energy, great, awesome. Kush from USN coming to America. It's like, okay, there's energy drinks everywhere. It's cool to see somebody to make the investment to go after that protein RTD category because it's not cheap. Which Ghost will be going after that category too. If you've seen Dan's been teasing it, but it's cool to see brands do some things that haven't been done in a hot minute.
Yeah. It's to go back to what Michael over at Glaxon, the guy that's running things over there, it's just one of his favorite expressions is like a lot of the time we talk about ego in the industry and people don't want others to succeed. But what he's told me, and we've been on several calls together, he says there's a big enough piece of pie for everybody. I mean, there's enough. You don't have to like pray for your enemy's demise in the supplement industry. There's enough unique concepts. If you do your job with marketing, telling the story, coming up with just, really cool shit or just quality formulas, it doesn't have to be game changing, next generation. I mean, just a really quality formula, put a good story around it. It's going to resonate with somebody out there if you're authentic and you teach it. I mean, you don't have to worry about trying to tackle the competition and be super cutthroat about it. I mean, I understand there's an element of that to being successful, but I think there's more than enough to go around for everybody to, carve out a really good living.
Yeah, there definitely is. And it's always evolving and moving. Like I literally just texted you a couple days ago asking you about this ingredient that I saw, right? That I don't have much knowledge with or work with. And Alpha Line, I think, is using it. So like it's just there's always new stuff coming out. So but the term game changing just irks me because like nothing is truly game changing. Like, I mean, what's the MRE RTD could be game changing. Like that's something that could be game changing because it's a non-dairy based shelf or it needs to be refrigerated, like on the go, ready to drink protein. There just hasn't been one outside of like Muscle Milk and Premier and whatever you think about Redcon and MRE, that's one thing. But in terms of like that category, that can be game changing in that category. It can disrupt that category a little bit. So it's just, there's just so many terms, Robert, that get used. And I hope when you write your content, if a brand owner ever comes to you and says like, you need to put, skin tearing pumps in there, you tell them no. Tell them no. Like laser focus and tunnel vision and skin tearing pumps. It's like, guys, there's gotta be a better way. But
there's gotta be.
I mean, I've never had a skin tearing pump in my life. So if somebody has, like my skin's attached.
Right? If you do, get your ass to the emergency room because you're about to bleed out real quick.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about the caffeine debate a couple of times. Just, hey, what is your typical caffeine intake during a day? And, do you like a lot? Have you shifted with more business hours putting in that? Has your caffeine intake substantially gone up or gone down or kind of just hanging around there?
I don't think it's, if anything, it's gone up a little bit. But I'm very cognizant of what I'm taking. So obviously I work out at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm taking something there. I like the pre-workouts that are like 250, 300 milligrams. 400 is really pushing it for me. But with that said, a mutual friend of ours, Robert at Apollon, the hooligan, like I finally gave in and said, okay, fine, fuck it, I'll try it. And it didn't make me feel like shit. It actually was good. And I don't know if you had a hand in helping with that, but it was actually really good.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
It wasn't like this rush of energy that made me go crazy. I didn't feel like shit. I didn't have a crazy crash from it. Performance wise, it was great. So, I've educated myself more on things too. Like I don't think 750 milligrams is necessary. So metabolic,
absolutely. Yeah.
I think I had an issue with that. But if you're using different sources of a caffeine, you're using, a caffeine a dicaffeine malate, something that's going to be, or sustained release caffeine, whatever. I mean, there's many different forms of caffeine. I think you can make it work. So like with Hooligan, I think it's 400 of caffeine A and 200 of dicaffeine malate, something like that. If I'm right.
Yeah, it's 450 and 150. I think is what we settled on.
Which is 600 total, but they hit at different times. So
right.
Yes, 450 is going to hit you hard. And I said this like when we talked when we did the review. I'm like, I don't recommend somebody take this every single day, but like a couple times a week is fine, and you're gonna get a jolt from it. But I try to stay around that 300 mark, and then I might have an energy drink. But I hate that energy drinks. Majority of them are at 300 milligrams. I like the ones that are at 200. So C4 Smart Energy is one of my favorite out there. I think Ghost's new one at 200 is great. America Energy is 200. Those are the ones I try to gravitate towards if I need something, or I'll just have a Diet Coke. Which is something that I have not drank a soda in so long. And then, I got a Diet Coke at a restaurant one time. I'm like, okay, I can maybe if I'm drinking an energy drink with 200 milligrams of caffeine, I can fucking drink a Diet Coke, which has like, whatever it is.
40, 50 milligrams. 40.
Yeah. So I still try to keep it down because I notice when I do consume too much, I actually get more tired and I feel like shit. Like for me personally, there's that crash, and then I feel groggy and I don't feel as alert as I want to be. So for me, like a $150 of caffeine and like a nootropic, or like Cortisone, for instance. I don't know if you've used it. Like I love it. Like I actually use it as a pre-workout sometimes because it gives me enough caffeine to wake up and be alert, but then I get more of the cognition, the cognitive benefit that I'm seeking from that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's where my sweet spot for nootropics is. Like 150, 200 is kind of pushing it. I mean, if you're going to go 200, give me a staggered release, like a 150 anhydrous and 50 sustained, or 100 and 100, somewhere in that part.
Agreed.
I think you start edging over 200. I mean, obviously everybody's got different caffeine wants, needs, desires, all that stuff. Right. But I think at that point you're shifting the gear from like pure productivity to like energy boosting and like pre-workout territory. That's why I don't like when I see, even like with Robbie's at Apollon's, his like overtime, and that's got a ton of caffeine, like 500, 450, 500. I forget what the thing is on there. I would only use half of that, even maybe a third of that serving as for like a pure nootropic. If I'm sitting down to work on a an article or a guide or something like that, I'm not going to pop the whole thing. If I'm going to pop the whole thing, it's going to be like, I'm going to be like out tailgating for the whole day at a football game, or like we got like a 2-hour workout ahead of us or something like that. It's not going to be just to like sit down and work, because I'll be too, buzzed to go on doing that. So there's a balance to all things.
Yeah. And then like, there's those people out there that like tout or brag about how much caffeine they drink. It's like, just calm down a little bit though. Cause like your central nervous system doesn't like to be that stressed all the time. So like, there's a reason why. I mean, if you're taking, and G and I talk about G said this one time and I loved it. He's like, you don't give a cocaine addict more cocaine to cure the problem. Like at some point you probably should notice like, hey, if a pre-workout with 600 milligrams of caffeine is not doing it for you, maybe you should recognize that and try to stagger off it. Take a stim break for a little bit and just reset yourself. Now, like in the case of somebody like Ben Kane at Price Plow, who does powerlifting meets, like taking a gram of caffeine or something extremely high for that meet makes sense. Like I get it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I would recommend to just like an average Joe going into the gym. Like I've seen back in the original Jack days, granted that thing was like a methamphetamine, whatever the fuck was in there, but like somebody accidentally took 2 scoops of it and had like heart issues and had an ambulance called to the gym. Like that was a common thing that happened. So it's just, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything sexy or cool about standing up and saying, I can take a gram of caffeine pre-workout and be fine. Like I don't think that's a cool thing to do. But, and that's why I guess like people who are huge fans of DMAA and love DMAA, I fucking hated DMAA. Like I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it made me feel. Sure, I got a jolt of energy, but afterwards, my God, I want to take a nap, for like the entire day. So I think that if we open our perspective as consumers and understand there's a reason some of these ingredients are coming out. Now, are there some ingredients being flagged for unnecessary reasons? I think so.
Absolutely.
the FDA or the people in charge doing it have no fucking idea what they're doing. If anything, you should be the person probably flagging these ingredients if you think there's anything out there. But like, hygenamine or whatever, it's like, why? I mean, there's
hygenamine, hordenine,
Yeah.
laxagenin. I think laxagenin is a dog shit ingredient. It's not a potent muscle builder. It might be a stress reliever, but it's by no means deserved to be on an advisory list or a warning list or anything.
It's a plant steroid, and it's like flag it. The word steroid was being used in that thing. So let's. But yeah, it's just. But we haven't seen a lot on that front in a while, which has been nice. But I think that the government their attention is focused on this Chinese virus, right? Is what the man in Washington calls it. So, enforcing us to wear masks in our own homes. So
yeah, and don't even see your family members at Thanksgiving. That's a crime. Don't even go. Don't.
We could do a whole podcast. I was just talking to Danielle this morning, not to make anything political at all, but like. What's worse is this. It's not the government telling us that we can't spend Thanksgiving with our families. It's us as U.S. citizens accepting that and saying, yeah, the government says I can't, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's the lemming mindset.
If you want to see your family at Thanksgiving, fucking see your family at Thanksgiving. Yeah. Like, it's just, I mean, the perfect storm and the perfect wish for the government is happening right now, that we are just falling in line and doing exactly what they say. Look at communist countries, same exact thing. Like,
100%.
What are we doing?
Yeah, the individual spirit. I don't know if it's just because people have been browbeaten for so long since like April for all this shit. Because we're on like week 4,392 of 2 weeks of slowing the spread. I'm just fuck off, man. Just at this point, I'm waiting for enough business owners and individuals to just kind of like nut up and say I'm fucking done with this.
You're gonna have to. Not many of them are going to survive a second run. I mean, like in Minneapolis here, the governor's talking today about something that's going to impact bars, restaurants, and gyms, even though there hasn't been a documented death case from a gym. But they're, obviously so. And then when we'll see what happens in Washington when things transition. But, it's just many of these businesses can't afford a second shutdown. And if my back's against the wall and it's like, okay, break the law and stay open or shut down, I'm staying open. I don't care.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then just take it on a legal front, because there is no legal ground whatsoever to keep these places closed. Absolutely. Which is one of the reasons why we go to one of our favorite distilleries, and people that listen to the podcast regularly hear me talk about this place almost on like a weekly basis now. It's just, we go out like 3 counties over, because we're in Travis County, which is like the oppression mecca right now. Yeah. Thanks to the little tyrant shitbag mayor. Anyway, go to Iron Wolf Distillery and just enjoy, like, everybody's out in the open. It's this like 15-acre ranch. People are enjoying adult beverages. There's live music. There's pizza. I mean, it's everything. It's normal. It's right. Nobody's freaking out, walking around in, hazmat suits or anything like that. So
yeah, I mean, you got to live your life too. Like, what do they say? Like, the cure can't be bigger than the problem. So let's
get back to normalcy.
Here's the reality. Now we can stop after this. The reality is we will live with COVID for the rest of our lives. COVID is the flu. It's going to be around. Okay. Mm-hmm. We're not going to eliminate COVID at all. So the vaccine from Pfizer or whatever, that's 95% effective, get it, enjoy it, and live your fucking life. Or maybe not get it, because again, this is being rushed. I don't know.
Exactly. But like, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's just like, we just got to find a way to live with it, and shutting everything down is not a way to live forward. So we just need to get better and smarter.
Yeah. A rebuttal here is like, well, when the virus is over, I'll feel safe. Do you understand how viruses work?
Right.
It's basic biology, people. Go back to like 7th grade human physical science or something. Correct. And understand this shit. Yes. We have a flu vaccine. You could still get the flu every fucking year. It just, I haven't gotten the flu vaccine. I think I got it one time in my life. I've never gotten it, but I don't ever get the flu. Thank God for a good immune system. Anyway, let's bring home some happy thoughts about training philosophy. So I know you are, a passionate bodybuilder, and there's this ongoing debate: volume versus intensity, frequency versus, just kicking ass once a week and all that stuff. Where do you fall personally in your training and when you're designing training programs?
Depends on who the person is. I think too, it's everything should always be individualistic. So like, yes, you and I both design training programs in an ebook sense that people can download. I mean, that's fine. But it's interesting, even like in my personal journeys, in terms of both competition preps that I've been on, that got canceled. The first one was more like tempo and volume based for my training. That's what the coach gave me. It worked for me. The second one with Matt Jansen was intensity. I mean, you would do like 5 warm-up sets and 2 working sets, and you would go all out. That's the first time I ever trained at high intensity like that in my life. Like, outside of doing like a 1-rep max and swinging my dick around the gym, like this is the first time that I literally would do it Monday through Friday. Yeah. And I actually really enjoyed it. So, I'm in between. Like, I feel like if you're somebody who can handle high intensity and that's the way you're wired, you want to be wired, I don't have an issue of writing that for somebody to do it. But I'm also not somebody. I don't like just being like, then I do 8 to 10 reps in 3 sets. Like I try to like now even like learning more about tempo and doing like 3 down, 1 up, whatever. Like I like to incorporate that type of training more because I've seen more people benefit from that. And a lot of people think, okay, are you a bro split guy? You push pull legs? Again, that is also individualistic. It also depends on how much time you commit to the gym. Are you in the gym 3 days a week? Well, in that case, like push pull legs, or do you do like whole bodies, for 3 days and just kind of rotate things around? So my personal preference is I love push pull legs. I think it's the best for me for hypertrophy. But that's not to say like a bro split doesn't work either. Because for the first 5 years of my training life, I did the bro split. Monday was chest day, obviously. Tuesday was leg day. Then things like that, and my body changed a ton. But I can honestly say like my body's changed more in the last 2 years from doing push pull legs and doing some more higher intensity stuff. Like the old adage is like eat heavy, lift heavy, and it works. It's just extremely shitty on your joints and stuff. So it's just that's why when you need a joint supplement, you go to Robert and he'll tell you what to take. But it's just because my mind, I'm not wired to think in multivitamins and joint stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't have necessarily a preferred way to write programs for people. I like giving people options and seeing who they are as people. I think that's the first thing as a trainer. Everybody should have that questionnaire, or at least sit down with them and understand their lifestyle, who they are as people, and what the competitive set is in terms of are they a competitive person? Because a competitive person probably can handle a lot more because they want to obviously do the best. So
Absolutely.
I don't favoritism on that. For myself, it is a push pull leg and recently more high intensity stuff.
Are you running it 6 days straight, or are you doing push pull legs off and then push pull legs again off, where it's kind of like a rotating 3 on 1 off schedule?
When I transitioned when we decided to discontinue our prep because Danielle found out she was pregnant, his was like push pull off, and then it was legs push off. So it was like 2 on 1 off was his, because in reality, if you're training high intensity and you're only taking 1 rest day a week, you're not giving yourself enough time to recover. So you should be doing 2 on 1 off. That was super hard for me mentally to grasp that, because I was always in the gym 6 days a week, and then that 7th day I'd either do cardio or rest. But it's one of those things you recognize that the person coaching you knows more than you, and you trust in them. And I learned a lot from that, and I think many do. But for now, I'm in the gym every single day again, but I'm not going high intensity every day. So I wouldn't call it a deload by any means. But then maybe I'll do a high intensity push day like 1A, and then 1B, I'll do more volume work, or less working sets, and then maybe incorporate some cardio in. But I can't, unless I'm with my daughter. When she's here, I don't spend time in the gym. Like it's with her and that's it. Those are my rest days. Otherwise, I'm in there doing something, just trying to be active, whether it's step master or stairmaster, step mill, some light volume work, band work. I need to do something for my own sanity.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Do you find when you stack your push and pull days, so this is like when I'm running a push, like I'm doing a 3-way split, usually I'll do something like I'll do pull legs and then push, or push legs and then pull, to where I've got the lower body in between the 2 upper body days, just because I feel like my shoulders, like that seems to be the limiting factor. It's not necessarily the chest or the back on anything, but it's like the shoulders, the weak link between those two. And it's like, that's what's ultimately limiting the performance, or if I stack too many of those upper body sessions together consecutively.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I think people traditionally just say push pull legs, but like Danielle is that way too. She's like, well, it's pull legs, then push and then rest. But you don't do push and pull next to each other. I have never had an issue with it, but I understand like shoulders are probably one of the most complicated areas of the body, because it's all encompassing of so much important shit, like between that and your rotator, that it controls so much of what we do, that if you overstress that area, like I dealt with like it wasn't a pec tear, but like I strained my pec muscle, which then I overcompensated with my right arm, and now my whole right arm is fucked up, like my tricep is. And so, but for me to not work out is tough, so I need to figure out a way to work with that. But I personally have never had an issue with it, but I definitely can understand and see why you'd want to split that up, because even like in your traditional bro splits, right? You would do a chest day, which is upper, and then you would do a lower. Most coaches are going to write an upper, lower, splitting those up. Most are going to write like an upper. So it's, like I said, for me, it doesn't bother me, but it's smart to do it the way that you're doing it, for sure.
Yeah. Favorite lift and least favorite lift?
Favorite lift for me, probably the deadlift still. I just love it. I think it's one of the best compound movements you can do. It works so much of everything. Chest press, which is everybody's favorite, it seems like. Barbell chest press, I think, is one of the worst things you can do. It's just, you should be doing dumbbell presses unless you're a competitor that you have to do that as a lift. I don't think you should ever touch a barbell. for pressing. But deadlift for me is just, I get the most satisfaction from it because I amaze myself how much I can pull sometimes. And I thankfully, knock on wood, I've never gotten hurt. My least favorite lift, if it outside of cardio, if you want to call that a lift, would be like walking lunges. And I just don't like them only because my knees are getting fucked up from lifting. Like even squats are getting to that point now too. I love them. I know they're beneficial, but like I need to reinvest in a pair of knee sleeves because my knees are just, I think I've lifted heavy long enough to the point where they're just kind of getting tired. But lunges, for whatever reason, I've never liked them. And maybe it's because I get blown up and I get tired from doing them too, or what. But I've never fully enjoyed them to the point where I want to do them. When I do them, when I ended, I'm like, that wasn't so bad. But every time I'm going into it, I'm like, this is gonna fucking suck.
Yeah. Do reverse lunges bother you the same way, or is it just the forward walking lunges?
Just forward walking lunges, yeah.
Okay. And then for deadlifts, conventional, sumo, trap bar?
I do conventional. I don't do trap bar ever. I've tried. I used sumo initially, like when I was trying to increase my overall deadlift. I think like a sumo or like a wide grip, or even using bands. A lot of people ask like, how do you increase your deadlift? Like those are things that you can start doing that'll increase your traditional. And then I do like the overhand grip too. So I know a lot of people will do like the ollie grip or whatever. I started that way, but I now it's. I take pride now in being able to lift more weights without straps and without a back brace or a belt if I don't have to. And like I pulled 505 the other week. I used straps, but I didn't use a belt, which because my grip just sucks. But when you are able to do that successfully and not use a belt, your form is good because you're not hurting yourself. And me walking away from an ego lift like that, not hurting myself, makes me feel better about being an idiot trying to pull 505.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, I think I've addressed all the bases I wanted to cover on our chat today, and we went down a few rabbit holes that I didn't even expect when we hopped on this call. Give us some teasers for what's to expect the rest of 2020 and early 2021.
Yeah, so we have this is going to be next month for Fit Butters anyway. The crunchy vegan peanut butter and jelly drops on Olympia Saturday, which is December 19th. It will be available on our website at all our retailers, tigerfitness.com as well. In January, we will have cookie butter coming featuring, I don't even think I can release the protein yet because I don't even know if they put it out there. Anyway, it's a brand that we do currently work with that does not have their vegan protein in mass market yet, which means it's coming. You probably can find if you go to Natural Body, I think that they actually posted some of it early on, but it's a cookie buttered flavored vegan protein and it's awesome. Mixed with, we're using Biscoff and it's a cashew almond blend. In February, we're going to bring back a certain red colored flavor for V-Day, Valentine's Day. And then in March, we're working on actually a Bailey's inspired flavor for St. Patty's Day to see if we can nail that in Irish cream. Otherwise, we'll do some springtime stuff in terms of like lemon, and people, whatever reason, are begging for lemon. I like lemon. It's just, to me, that'd be something you just eat by the spoon. Maybe you could throw on the rice cake, I guess, but that's the big thing there. It's kind of, it's fun for us on the FI side because we're working with some, brands like Glaxine and things of that. So for us, it's going to be some fresh content that people haven't been exposed to on that platform before. And that gets us fired up too. I mean, even, the stuff that NutriBio is working on that we haven't gotten a chance, the stuff that you're working on with them, like when that comes out, it's nice because it's like an injection of, that's why it's so much fun working with a brand like Ghost, because they're constantly doing something. And it makes us help them be more successful through our platform because they keep us busy. And then it just keeps us like, on our toes, like what's next? And I think, for a long time, Ghost by accident was super successful. And Dan, one of the owners over there will actually tell you that, like, they didn't really plan much. They just did it. And now they're actually starting to plan some things a little bit. And you've seen the growth that they've had as a brand. It's pretty phenomenal. So, it's just, we're going to be at the Olympia covering it for Fitness Informant. We're going to cover the actual bodybuilding show, which will be the first time we actually covered the event and not the expo. So that'll be cool. But man, I just try to have fun, dude. Like you, right? Like, I mean, you can get so burnt out on doing the same shit over and over. So you got to do something to keep yourself involved. And like, for me, like, I don't do reviews as often as I used to, but like this week I sat down, I did a review on Ghost, their BCA V2. And it's like, I'm a kid again. I haven't done this in a while. It was fun to write it. It was fun to film it. I can still film it in one take because I haven't lost it yet. So, it's been cool to do that. And it's, that the butter business is doing well, that I don't necessarily need to be as hands-on as I once was. It allows me to take on some of the stuff that I used to do all the time before I had G, and it's fun again for me.
Outstanding. Last thing, who do you have in the Olympia this year, if you have a favorite at all?
Phil.
Nope.
I mean, it's just nobody can beat Phil when Phil's Phil. His
Yeah.
back is fucking insane. He got his hernia issue fixed, and that's no discredit to people like Rolly or Dexter. I'd love to see Dexter up there next to him just because it's his last show, and it's sad that it's his last show considering the environment that's around. But all these guys got an extra 3 months, and that's what I'm like excited. I'm sad that Flex Lewis got hurt, or what he pulled out, but.
Right.
And not to say, like, again, I feel like I'm disrespecting Brandon Curry, but I don't want to because he's such an advocate for the sport. Him and William Bonac are both great for the sport. It's just, and I'll meet Brandon Curry for the first time actually in my life in the Olympia, and I want to shake his hand and say thank you for what you've done for this sport. But if you're looking at like the pure package, Phil Heath is quite possibly the greatest bodybuilder ever. And that's not taking anything from Ronnie. Ronnie's my favorite, but if Phil wins this year, I think he becomes the greatest bodybuilder ever. And it's just, he calls himself the gift for a reason. I mean, he really got the genetics to be successful in this sport, and he's proven it 7 times, and it'll be 8 if he wins this one, right? I think, or 8 or 9.
No, it'll be he'll tie Ronnie if he wins this one, I believe.
Yeah, he'll have a lot. He'll have a lot. I didn't expect him to come back. I thought when he came back, it was going to be for the Icon Classic, which is the Athleticon for The Rock. I thought him and Kai would do something there because The Rock is smart when it comes to marketing. So it's cool to see him. And I don't know what the status is on international travel for competitors who are coming into the country. I still don't know if we got clarification on that. So, if people are in Brazil or whatever, are they allowed to compete? I don't know.
If there's enough money to grease the right pockets, I'm sure they can find some gap in the border to get through. I mean, it's kind of like what you said, man. Honest money is going to favor Phil if he gets his stomach, back in that condition. He doesn't have it like puffing out and look like he was gasping like he did the past couple Olympias. I mean, you always figure like the returning champ, the guy that's coming to defend his title, is going to have that chip on his shoulder because he knows that Phil's coming. So you expect him to bring his A game 100%. I mean, I think it's going to be one of them too.
Yeah, not to mention that Brand's been dealing with like a full year of basically disrespect. And then that's why I said, like, I don't mean to disrespect him by not including him in that conversation.
Right.
But Phil is Phil. And Phil is the greatest. And it's just, whether you like the guy, I heard he's an asshole. I've never met him. I don't know. But a lot of times I meet people who are considered assholes and I get along with them just fine. So, regardless of what you think of him as a person, as a bodybuilder, he's absolutely fucking phenomenal. And I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see Dexter. I'm excited to just like literally like Regan and just some of the young talent coming in that are full of potential. I think it's good for the sport to have. And I'll talk to Jay about this too, but like, I think we have some advocates for the sport in a good sense now.
Yeah.
And, I had such a good, enjoyable time watching the Arnold this year, just because maybe it's because I know some of the guys now. So it's like, you have a vested interest in it, but it's just the only thing I wish they would utilize their platforms more to kind of like start a little something. Like that's what I like about the physique guys is it's like you get Andre and Brandon like going back and forth with each other, and it makes you want to watch that. So like the days of like Phil and Kai when they would go back and forth, like that was drama. That was like pro wrestling drama on the stage, and it was cool. And I think like for the Olympia and the sport to be super successful again is like we need to have some personalities. And they need to come through because at the end of the day, it is entertainment. Like is bodybuilding a sport? Sure. Is it subjective? Yes. Right. So like, give us more reason to invest in you as a person, as a character. And not only will, obviously people pay attention to you and you can play the politic game because that's what a lot of them do, but like you're going to increase your worth. So if you want to launch a supplement line in 2 years, people will remember you and you can leverage that and make something beyond bodybuilding. That's why I like Cutler a lot because he won 4 Olympias, but he had a personality. Him and Ronnie had their thing too, and it's like he went off and did something with BPI, which sucked, and he'll admit that with you. But his stuff now, his Cutler nutrition line now is great. Like I like it a lot, and he's successful because of what he did in bodybuilding, but he's more successful but what he's done since bodybuilding, and he's staying relevant because he has some personality and he's doing things the right way. Absolutely, man.
Awesome, Ryan. Well, this was a fantastic chat, man. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so fitnessinformant.com, fitbutters.com are the 2 domains. Instagram, same thing, at fitnessinformant, at fitbutters. And I don't know when does this podcast drop?
This will drop Friday. This coming Friday, so 2 days from now.
A week before Black Friday. So we don't do sales at Fitbutters. I don't believe in like discounting the brand. I feel so many brands run continuous sales all the time. But we will have a Black Friday special. We have some cool stuff that are going to be included. with your orders. So just our way of saying thank you to a lot of the brands. I mean, don't expect like a massive 20% site-wide discount. We won't do that ever. But you will have an opportunity to save a few dollars. You will have an opportunity to get some cool shit, and you'll get the opportunity for Better Than Sex Cake, the limited edition butter that's dropping next weekend.
Outstanding, man. Well, thank you for your time, Ryan. This was a blast, man, on continued successes with both ventures.
Thank you, buddy.
All right.